game 2 of the 2025 Unland Cup semi-final match between Aric playing Avatar of Earth and Mike playing Archimago. Unland Cup was a constructed tournament with a top 8 cut to best of 3 single elimination matches, 10 card sideboard allowed after game 1. So it looks like they're squaring up with their mulligans and preparing to get started here. Mike starting it off. On the play, tapping for Gnome Hollow, and then passing turn. Aric tapping for a Windmill, and then passing it back. Mike draws a spell for turn. Tapping for a tower, 3 mana for turn, 1 for a root spider, and then or playing a root spider, and then passing turn back. He's building out defensively. He got like an early alpha strike last game on game 1. And so I think he's a little wary now about getting a projectile line all the way to his home site and then allowing Avatar of Earth to grapple shot to him. Gnome Hollow in this case is probably a pretty good site to have at the home site if he plans to be there. Just because if he can get a couple more earth sites to surround it, Aric won't be able to do that same trick and grapple shot straight down, because once the Avatar tries to enter Gnome Hollow with the grapple shot, it will be unable to if it calculates at 3 or more power. And honestly, putting the Rift Valley on the back row there would cause that to happen. Same with the second Gnome Hollow played to the center. So a much better defensive pattern against Avatar of Earth for Mike here on game 2. Mike playing a blink for 2 to get the root spider under the Rift Valley, disabling the leprechaun. Passing turn back to Aric. Aric drawing a spell for turn. Looks like he has his own root spider in hand. Only 2 mana currently. He does have a 3rd sight in hand. I think there'd have to be a really compelling reason to not play your 3rd sight on turn here, on turn 3. It looks like he also might have 2 grapple shots in hand, but like I said, the problem with those Gnome Hollows there, the Gnome Hollows are Earth sites, the Rift Valley is Earth sites. If the Avatar of Air were able to grapple over there, its calculated power would now exceed the minimum or the threshold to allow it to enter into the Gnome Hollow site. So at that point, it stops at the border and then can't enter. So pretty effective screen on Mike's side of the board here. Aric playing a bedrock up onto Mike's side of the board by the Rift Valley. And again, he made a comment and admitted that that was a tough decision. I think he wasn't sure whether or not he wanted to come straight down the middle, or if he wanted to continue to build out in this foothold that he secured with the Rift Valley. With the 3 mana, he plays a Root Spider under Bedrock to threaten to trade for Mike's Root Spider. Mike draws a site for turn. Tapping to play a Merlin's Tower. I don't believe he has the threshold for the Genesis. But 2 mana for an Angel's Egg. And again, if that Angel's Egg is left uncontested, it can do a lot of work to kind of keep Mike in the game until mid to late game, which is where Archimago ultimately wants to be. Mike facing down the inevitable with the second Root Spider under the Bedrock, and just decides to go ahead and do the trade. Aric drawing a site for turn. It looks like it's a village. And then he's going to tap to play it down the middle, just to establish that lane, even with the Gnome Hollows. And it doesn't look like he's calling the Genesis for the Foot Soldier. So 4 mana for turn. Let's see what he's going to do with it. 2 for Common Sense. That'll leave him with an additional 2 mana on this turn. Pulling out a Land Surveyor. It looks like he can cast it if he wants, which is probably what we're going to see here. Playing the Land Surveyor, getting that card draw for the site will enable him on the next turn to draw a spell for turn instead of site. Aric just double checking the remainder in his mana pool, and yes, he does have 2 left, so he can get that cast out. And then drawing the site on Genesis. And then, unless he wants to do anything with the Leprechaun, it looks like he doesn't. He's passing turn back, and the Leprechaun's just going to hold there on the Rift Valley site. Mike playing out a Pebbled Path, and this is a very different site patterning than we saw in game 1. He's playing much more defensively, spreading out his sites more. I think he wants to minimize the potential power values on Avatar of Earth when it ends up on his side of the board. He wants to create potential pockets where the Avatar of Earth is going to calculate with a lower power total that he could maneuver to or run to if he has to. Like the Keletop is swinging in for 2 points of damage, and the Land Surveyor swinging in for 1. Aric tapping for another village. Looks like he's double checking. I think he's double checking if he wants to place that somewhere else, or if he's happy with that placement choice. He's thinking long and hard about it. The site locations, especially in this game, are probably going to be a lot more important. Mike had time to think about game one and how game one went for him, and he's looking to kind of minimize the impact as best he can with the Avatar of Earth and getting it powered up, because it's really dangerous when Avatar of Earth gets powered up at 5 or 6 power and is swinging in for 5 or 6 per turn. It really puts a ton of pressure and a short clock on what you're going to do. Aric ends up paying the Genesis to create the Foot Soldier token, and then drops another Kettle Top. Kettle Top, Leprechaun, again, just 2 power. It can still sneak into Gnome Hollow there and continue to attack. Mike getting started with his turn here. Swinging up with that dapper little vampire. It was a little harder to see that one in the corner with the glare reflection earlier, but that is going to be a problem for Aric, unless he has a way to deal with that soon. I think that it would be more of a priority for Aric to try to deal with that vampire on his next turn here. Otherwise, at this point, the vampire is now in position where it can start swinging in and gobbling up some of his lower power minions here, and then just undoing any of the chip damage that Aric has been able to push through up to this point, because every time that the vampire strikes, it's going to heal for 4. He's passing again and getting another life tick up from that egg. So again, I feel like the priority for Aric here has got to be to remove the vampire from play, however he can manage that, or at least to mitigate the amount of targets that it has available to attack into. And he's thinking pretty hard about the board state here. He has not made any plays during his main phase yet. Like I said, I think the priority is the vampire. I don't know if he has anything in his hand to take care of the vampire or not. I would imagine if he had something easy, like a berry, it would have come out really quick. And the fact that that he doesn't have that means that he's trying to get a little more creative and think about it. I think sneaking a peek earlier into his hand in this match, it looked like he did have 2 grapple shots. It's just he has pretty low power thresholds on his minions on the board right now. So, I mean, if he grapple shots a leprechaun into the vampire, he'd have to do it twice just to remove it. Instead, he's choosing just to go ahead and attack in with his creatures to go ahead and get that started. And then he is playing an Atlas Wanderer for 5 to rearrange the sites and keep it within range of wherever the vampire, or virtually wherever the vampire wants to attack to. And just give it more opportunities to defend. They're rolling the sequencing back really quick for clarity, but just in case that wasn't clear, Aric chose to move the Avatar of Air forward onto the site first before playing the Atlas Wanderers, and then rearranging the site with the Atlas Wanderer to push forward the Avatar of Earth. I think, again, like, Aric has those grapple shots in his hand. I think he's just trying to get the pieces up there to be able to deal with the vampire as soon as he can, and attacking in just to keep some sort of pressure going here. Even if the egg and the vampire heal him back up, if he can at least sustain like a point or 2 of damage, that's better than nothing. But now that he has those pieces further up the field, the Atlas Wanderer, the Avatar of Earth, if he can get a projectile line to the vampire with either of those, that would be enough to take care of it with a grapple shot. Mike getting an infiltrate in on the Atlas Wanderer, that has to feel a little disappointing for Aric. Mike, in game 1, made great use of infiltrate to kind of stall out his game and cling and hold on for a couple and buy a couple more turns. Mike choosing to just attack the bedrock with the vampire for, again, 4 more points of damage in. It's going to drop Aric down to 12. At the end of this turn, Mike is going to tick back up, again with the egg, back up to 16. Aric plays Amethyst Core. And there's one of the grapple shots. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and use the Avatar of Earth to remove the vampire. He can't let that stay on the table. Aric is, attacking in with all of his smaller pieces where he can here. The Leprechaun and the Foot Soldier token is a little safer in Gnome Hollow just because Atlas Wanderer can't move in there. So with all of the minions, that would be, 6 points in. Avatar of Earth then swinging onto that step with a calculated power of 4. Mike setting up for his turn again here. And again, what started as a defensive boon for Mike has kind of become a little bit more of a problem for him, just because Atlas Wanderer cannot get into either of the gnome hollows, just because it's a power of 5. So even if you wanted to start clearing out some of these pieces, like the leprechauns, and remove them from the board, he's not going to be able to do that with the piece that he just infiltrated. I don't even know if that's necessarily like the best use of that infiltrated piece, but it is just something worth noting that it's not even an option on the table for him to get that minion in there if he wanted to. There's plenty of other ways for Mike to do this with spells. I mean, all he would need would be a magic missile to clear out the 2 minions that he has on his home site. But he's going to find himself on a turn clock again here, with where the Avatar of Earth is placed. Again, it's swinging for a guaranteed 4 for turn, and then if he can't deal with the rest of these minions in his gnome hollows, that's what, 6, 10 points of damage total. So he needs more blockers, or he needs to start clearing some things out on this turn if he wants to prevent going to door. And Mike knows that. He's a smart guy. He's taking a long time to think this through. Again, I think he's just trying to think of the best way to kind of deal with some of these pieces now. Tapping for a site. And then looking at his graveyard, he's got, I think, 2 spells in there. He's got that Blink the Infiltrate. Mike was just asking for a hand check. Aric is down to 2 spells. Just 2 spells in his hand at this point, but he has a pretty good board presence right now, as it sits. I can't see Mike's hand, but I think his card count might be relatively tame compared to some other games that Archimago has played out here with this deck. Just because looking at what he has in his cemetery, he hasn't been able to go wild with all of the card cycling cards like Blink, Common Sense, Power of Flight. Both players just having a lighthearted conversation just about how agonizing it is to play these games when you get to this point where the decisions really start to matter, and it becomes difficult to kind of parse out what the correct or not correct, but what the best moves are going to be to give yourself the best chance. Mike being a little cautious. I think he's trying to play around certain cards. He might probably be worried about maybe an earthquake. He might be worried about Okay, Mike went ahead and played out Divine Heal for 7. jumps him back up to 14. And he has 3 spells in the cemetery, so he does have the option to go ahead and recast that. Okay, so instead, what he has opted to do is swing in for 5 with the Atlas Wanderers, and then banish those 3 spells and recast Infiltrate from them to gain control of the Atlas Wanderers again. Which is actually a pretty scary proposition. Brought Aric down to 7, and the Atlas Wanderers with stealth, that's going to be an undefended 5 points coming in if he wants. Aric, again, with what he has on the board here, he can swing for 10 points of damage. 10 points of damage, and I think that puts Mike down to 4. I think there's a real risk of getting sent to door on the next turn here. Just if he can swing in for 5 with Atlas Wanderer, he just needs to figure out how to do 2 more points. He's going to go ahead and move in here with the 10. Mike's life total is actually 5, now 6. I keep forgetting to calculate the egg at the end of each turn. Aric also played out a Philosopher's Stone that he had in hand, and I think that was all he could do. He passed his turn. He's got 1 card left, and we already know that card is a grapple shot. So if he can get Mike down to death's door, he does have a win condition in his hand, as long as he can get at least one of these small minions to stick. Mike looking at... Looks like he's maybe looking at some, some possible locations on the grid for movements. Again, he's taking a while here, just agonizing about this turn here. He's going to go ahead and do that swing for 5. That brings him to 2. And then he just needs the 2 more. And he can just common sense for a lightning bolt. And that would do it here if the goal is to get in the door. And there it is. There's the lightning bolt. So Aric now at door. It's a dangerous place to be here because there are now 3 spells in the cemetery. The next turn, all Mike has to do is recast and send a lightning bolt down onto the Avatar of Earth again. And it looks like there's 3 spells because he played another common sense and he played it slightly off camera. But you can see it poking out in the cemetery again, and that's why he's now drawing more cards. And he drew a grapple shot again, just as an additional kill spell option here. Aric suddenly finding himself in a very tough position. Mike gains 1 more from the egg at the end of the turn and then passes. Looking at the positioning here, I'm not even sure there's a place for Aric to run to. He's got a couple of minion bodies in his hand, but the minion bodies that he has in his hand, they're all high cost. It looks like Pudge Butcher for 4, Vivian for 5. You know, at best he could play 1 to act as a blocker or a screener, and that's really not going to cut it. Yeah, Aric is just double checking, but he's not really seeing a way out of the situation with what he has in his hand. He's gonna go ahead and play out the game though. He's gonna attack for 4 with the Avatar. He's moving with the Atlas Wanderer. And he's attacking with a couple of his other minions here, just to ensure that we go down the door. So he's doing a creative. He's using a grapple shot creatively to first grapple the Avatar of Earth over to the Atlas Wanderer, then attacking with the Atlas Wanderer, and then attacking with a couple of the remaining minions necessary. But even then, it's not going to be enough here, just because the grapple shots are too. There's too many kill conditions, I think, that Mike has access to. So Vivian coming in copies all abilities. Which is actually pretty interesting. Which is pretty interesting against Archimago, just because if she copies Archimago's ability, it would open up Aric's graveyard to be able to recursion any of his spells, like maybe the grapple shot or the common sense. He just, unfortunately, he didn't have enough mana to do it on his last turn. It took all of his mana just to bring her out, but if he survived another turn, it would give him some interesting possibilities if Vivian stuck. Mike is tapping to play out another Gnome Hollow. And then he's banishing Common Sense for a blink in order to use the grapple shot in his hand. So that was game 2 of this match. They are 1-1, and we are going to go to game 3.